And we're live just like that. It is April 25th, 2025. Spring is here. Summer's coming. I'm very happy today. My son, Jack. Look at that. I even got the thing started automatically. My son, Jack, is back from overseas. The sun is out. Got a great walk in. Feeling groovy. Today, I had some great questions, and I thought it'd be a perfect opportunity to talk about utility plugins that are included in the software bundle that are really going to change a lot of the things that you need to do in order to have a successful online business using Minute Launch. And so these are not hard to set up. I'm going to do a live event. I also had some good questions that came in from Ann and Bernie and a few other folks. So without further ado, welcome. Say hi if you're here, just so I know you're around. And I'll say hello as well. Hello. Let's see if this actually pops up. It does. I've also got you monitoring down here. So give me a shout out. Let's dive in. I've got the dashboard set up from last week. I'm still debating whether I like this layout or this layout. I think this layout achieves the same purpose. Slightly better use of the space. All right, let's go with this. Let's set the stage here. I don't know if what I have set up from last week on this. It's just a blank setup. But just to review in general some of the things, the software bundle is always available for somebody to look at. First of all, at wplaunchify.com/software bundle. I have the weirdest feeling that I'm not live, but I am live. Let me make sure this is actually playing. It is playing. So I'm going to go with safety base. Sorry, I had to delay, but usually at this point, somebody has dropped in to say hello. So if you're in the numbers there, wave your hand or something. Okay, so what we've got is in the software bundle, you can always, whether you're logged in or not, see which current versions of the plugin are there. This is updated automatically. It's useful for an index, but I've also got another place where you can look, which is at minutelaunch.com. And I'm presently working to improve this. In fact, it's a high priority. When we look at the ingredients list at the top, this should have most all of the software as well. And it includes links, which is important, to the original source. So for example, Foo Events, if we go to the author of that plugin, this will take you to their documentation so that it's not necessary for you to, or for us to continually update the original source, right? We're trying to simplify this entire setup. And I'm working very closely with Ann on this to build sort of grandma's recipe book. It's going to have an index. It's going to have all the ingredients, and then it's going to have the recipes when it's ultimately finished. The recipes will all be simple as just a few lines, a few steps. This one here is my favorite because it just shows you where I'm shooting. I think ideally just 1 step, 2 step, 3 step, 4, a video, use the recipe, with whatever ingredients, and be in and out of there in no time flat. I'm also quite gratified that this works because I've got a situation with at least a couple of my clients where what we're doing now is vibe coding. We're essentially taking the components that are inside of the launch kit, Minute Launch Kit, and combining them with the AI capability to generate some custom snippets to glue it all together. And in doing so, we're really getting incredibly powerful outcomes, but with virtually no need to modify some of the traditional things inside of WordPress. Like, for example, if we're using custom fields, we can use custom fields ACF Pro, but we don't have to use some of the really clunky tools of ACF in order to achieve the outcome. Instead, we're just using that as a way to hold the actual data, and then using this vibe coding method that I'll share with you at the end of today to pull it all together. All right, so let's dive in. In terms of utilities, when you're on a Minute Launch install, you're going to be using the plugin that we provide for free that allows you to update and manage and install. So Launch Kit. This may get an update to be called Minute Launch Kit. So if you see this Launch Kit logo change in the next couple of days, don't be concerned. I'm going to be leaning in on the Minute Launch brand instead of Launch Kit. As I said in the past, reason being, if you search for Minute Launch, we really get no results at all. I mean, it's pretty much all my stuff. Nobody else is using that. If you search for Launch Kit, unfortunately, this is become a bit overused. And there's another company who actually has launchkit.com itself. It's a marketing agency in Grand Rapids, Michigan. So I'm backing away from that, especially now since the plugin is available for free, by the way, at the top of the software bundle page. It's always available here for free. So we don't need the repository to deliver it. I'm just losing that brand, or at least the name. All right, now that we've got it here, let's talk about the utilities themselves. One of the best utilities, if you've never used this before, this is my number one, numero uno. This requires a zoom in. My number one utility is one that I've used for, hi Sharon, good morning. Number one, I've used this since forever. This is for anybody who is Gen Xer for sure. It is Admin Menu Editor Pro. Let's install that. What I use this for primarily, although it has a multitude of uses, is to organize the left-hand column any way I see fit. For Spence, Gen Xer, go Gen X, I use it for alphabetical. So let's activate this. If you do nothing else, your clients, your shop manager, anybody who works with you is going to love you for this. Once you've set it up, you can either go to the settings or you can go under, I believe it shows up, it shows up here, Menu Editor Pro. And there's two other utilities that come with it, but I'm not a fan of those utilities. I don't know why they jammed them into this. So I don't use them at all. In fact, to a certain degree, I may just turn them off as a default. But this one, yes, this one is the best utility ever. Here is what I do with it. Notice there's a whole mess of stuff we can do, but I'm in the admin menu tab. And this gives me an interface that's very intuitive, in my opinion. On the left-hand side are all the admin menu items. You can reorganize them. But the way I do it is really simple. Use this little doodad here, this little drop-down doodad, and then do A to Z. That's it. You can Z to A if you want to go bottom to top, but like top down, I do that. And then you can use your left mouse, drag items, including spacers, which you can add and remove, to organize the dashboard the way that you want. When you click the Save Changes, it will respond accordingly on the left-hand side. This in and of itself is going to save your life, because I don't know about you, but I no longer on any of my sites have to do the dance of what the hell is happening. Why are the A's below the Z's and the B's in front of the K, but the M is, just what? This is all alphabetical, but you can also group it by importance. So for example, you probably might want to put Launch Kit up there, and we could put, if you're setting up your products, you can put your products up. You can do whatever you want to organize them into groups and subgroups. You can have dividers. There's further utility here that I don't really encourage you to get into because it's going to cause you some other trouble, but you have the ability to, based upon different roles or different capabilities, you can also set up different menus for visibility. You can also do security. So let me give you an example. If in this particular case, not saying you should, you wanted to make it that authors who are writing stuff for your site have a different setup than you as the administrator, you could literally do that. And it just essentially gives you all of the things that they would normally be able to see, and then you can modify or adjust it. Like, for example, you can change the target of something, or you could change the title of something. You could change the permissions, or even just go ahead and go to town on this. Change the color scheme, change where it opens, change the heading, change everything and anything you could change based upon either a global, which is how I use it, or per capability by role and so forth. The thing that's really super neat about all of this is that this gives you the kind of control you need in one spot, so that if you do have to make these custom changes, somebody doesn't have to be hunting around for special functions or filters that would have programmatically been necessary to make this happen. That's my $5 word, programmatically. Okay, so it's almost like when we do appearance customized CSS, That one box holds all the CSS that you need for the whole site, at least for the front end. There's the option here to show the admin menu or the toolbar, right? So this here admin bar, right? You could literally hide it if you wanted. I wouldn't. I'm just saying there's popular options in here. Before we leave this utility, there are some things that you could do in here, but I want to caution you that I have not found them to be really as awesome as this other stuff. You can modify things like the dashboard widgets, the thing that shows up on your dashboard page. This could be useful if you wanted to customize something for team members or for other people that have access to the back end. You could get into nav menus, redirects, roles, tweaks. I mean, Janis else has packed a ton of utility in here, but I don't use anything except the admin menu because my rule is don't use tools that don't have a higher and best purpose. Okay. Let's go back and look for some more fun. We're going to go to LaunchKit. This one is a tough one, but I think what I'm going to show is add anchor links. This is not going to be important for everybody. So I'm going to give this this is a 1.5 and I'm going alphabetical. Not that these are literally the most important order, just so that I don't miss one. Add anchor links is a tool that essentially allows you to designate a link that looks like this. If we were to go, let's go to launch flows, documentation. If you were inside of any document and you wanted to make it easy for somebody to link back to it, a paragraph or something. So for example, when I go into my short codes here, you notice I have this nice index, which is wonderful. This allows me to, if I wanted to, scroll somebody down dynamically to a particular place. But the add anchor links is this. When you roll your, why is this one? Let me go on minute launch. It's easier because this one I've turned off the visible thing. I want to show you something. Actually, let's do WP Launch Kit. And then I'll do it live on the site too. Documentation. This makes it possible that you can designate, let's say, an H3 or another particular item to be a link that somebody can copy and bookmark. So I don't know if you can see this. I may zoom in a bit. Let me go zoom. When I scroll in, do you see, hopefully you do, yeah. Do you see how there's the little link symbol? So what this means is somebody can be in my documentation page, get to a particular place, and they can copy that link address that will take them directly to that spot in the page. Ta-da, like that. And so it's a really useful utility. However, the downside of it that I found, just to let you know, is that you need to set it up to specify a specific tag or division ID or something. If you don't, it's going to use that capability across your entire website. And that could be kind of awkward. You don't really want it or need it on blog posts or other stuff. It's useful when we're doing documentation and so forth. So if I'm going to set it up here just to show you, there's a configuration option that makes it pretty easy to limit where it applies. So you could add anchor links and settings. And right now, out of the box, you can use your own CSS, which is beyond the scope of what you want to do. I probably will put an option in here that will make it easier for us to use this universally by giving like a special ID or something to any pages or paragraphs. But right now, you can just do it by post type. So for example, I would have it apply only to a specific thing like products or attachments or a page. Almost never would I apply it to a post. That would just be very, very busy. So I like this. It's useful. It serves a purpose, especially for the documentation pages, which you might use using a post type like we've talked about in other videos. Let's go back to LaunchKit. Scrolling down, I'm going to show you this one, but again, I am not using this as much as I thought. Admin Columns Pro. This has a ton of power, but it really can mess up your site if you don't know what you're doing. You can thankfully reset it, but what it does is it allows you on any of your post types on the admin side to customize the output. For example, let's look, before we change things, let's look at products from WooCommerce. See the columns that I've, let's do a couple things. Let's dismiss that. See the columns I've got. I've got thumbnail, name, SKU, stock, price, categories, tags, and so forth. I can, with a normal WordPress site, decide to show or not show those, but I can't modify them. I can't reorganize them. I can't give them superpowers they don't have. Furthermore, if I want to do special things like filter by this or that, I'm only limited to, or I am limited by whatever options are built into the setup that I've got, whether it be through WooCommerce or one of the add-ons. So Admin Columns Pro comes to the rescue because you can really do something interesting here. I think this is under Tools. We'll find out. No, I think it's going to be under Settings. Let me make sure I've actually enabled it because I'm not sure where the menu is showing up. This is sometimes a problem with me too, because I have to play a little bit of hunt and peck. By the way, using admin menu editor, I can solve this problem by putting my favorite stuff right where I need it to be instead of monkeying around with all this. So if you ever get lost, go back over here to the plugins, installed plugins, and you can often find your way back through the settings menu. Oh, I had not activated it. So first of all, helps when you activate it. I'm so excited to have the band back together here. So let's see if it shows up under Tools or Settings. Honestly, don't know. So in order to get to it, what I'm going to do is what I was about to show you, which is you go here, Admin Columns Pro Settings, it will reveal where it's located. And yes, it is in Settings and it's Admin Columns. Maybe I just needed to refresh the page. All right, so here's the basic idea. You have these various global options, right? You have things that you can install into this, which aren't really necessary here. It's already integrated with WooCommerce. You have export. You have various templates and so forth. Okay. But what really happens is this happens in line, right? This happens in line with the various things. So if I go here to columns, I can choose which post type I want to modify. Let's modify products. So WooCommerce products. Notice it's picking up just about everything under the sun. So it picks, this is what's nice about it. It automatically senses comments, taxonomy, WooCommerce taxonomy, media, post types, just about everything. And it's specifically got WooCommerce products or products variations. Now, here's how it works. Notice this is the vertical layout of the same items that might have been put out by WooCommerce by default. If I wanted to emphasize, for example, the date being the first thing right after image, all I need to do, first of all, is just move that column. And let's open this up in another tab so we can refer back to it. If I look at now my output, I wish I could do this side by side. Notice I've got image and date. Notice I've got some utilities here. With the date, I've got some tools here. Enable editing, enable bulk editing, enable smart filtering, enable filtering, just standard filtering, which is the static list. This is, I think, enable export. If I open this up, there's even more tools. So for example, I can change the labels. I can selectively turn these on and off and so forth. What typically happens is there's an option here as well for sorting that I'm probably looking right past. I'm gonna show you on another one. This one, it just has the sorting built in, which is nice. But the sorting is what allows us to, for example, you see the little up and down arrows. I want to sort it by date, ascending or descending. That's not always available. So for example, here, categories, that doesn't have sorting enabled. I'm not sure whether this will allow us to modify it, but let's see. If we go to categories, we open it up. Actually, it says sorting is on, but this is a good example of what I'm talking about. Having a toggle to turn that on or off is a nice option. Perhaps the reason it's not on is because I've only got one category in there. But what's really neat, I think, is you can also add your own columns. And this could be for some cool utilities. It could be either for something that's already a known functionality, or it could be something that was previously unknown. Like, for example, maybe I want to put in a custom column of data of related stuff. So when you add the column, you can essentially say it's either a custom field. Sorry about my scrolling up and down here. Let's go back. Okay. It's either a custom field, in which case you can choose what you're going to use here. This could be something like a field value that I've added a custom field to products and I want to display that. I would need to pick which of the custom fields it is, right? This would need to be a product metadata field, but still you can see there's like, it's pulling out and identifying almost everything else. Like maybe launch flows or something, the price field. Okay. You can also choose from other things that are already built into WooCommerce, right? Like maybe I want to show the coupons, if any, associated to this product. And you can go on and on from here. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it because there's so many great options. But what you can do is use what I just described. Go to minutelaunch.com if you're curious. Go to the ingredients, and this will have a search on it very soon. But if you just searched for it or you scroll down to admin columns, it's under the utility section at the bottom. Admin columns pro. Just click here. Have a little fun reading through their documentation and what's possible, because it's got a lot of potential there. And that's the way that I want you and everybody else to kind of make use of this. Take what we've already got in terms of linkages and make it happen. All right, so this one allows you to do some really, let's just see what happens when I do it, really cool stuff, and it applies to any of the post types you want. The benefit to you is that at the end of the day, you can have your admin layout showing exactly the information that you may need in the way that you need it, and you can hide everything else. It also adds this cool sorting and filtering capability. So let me show you that, for example. I was looking to see if what we just did, by the way, the coupons doesn't show up because I just don't have any coupons. Let's remove this. Let me show you what happens if you wanted to remove some things. Let's say I don't use the stock thing. Just remove it. I don't need the SKU thing. Remove it. Okay. What I think the best use of this is to organize your stuff the way you want it. Like maybe I really want the name, the image, the date, and the price. And I don't want the categories even. Okay. I don't need the tags. I don't need the brands. Okay. This to me is probably the most useful way for this column layout, because it really streamlines. Look, I've got the thing exactly as I want it instead of the other way around. All right. I think actually I would always put the image first though. All right. Next is that you notice there's also some additional cool filtering. What if I wanted to set up a search or a category thing? Like when Spence is saying do launch flows and make sales funnels, you have certain products that might only show up in certain sales funnels. Well, the way you can make that happen is you can actually choose a specific category or tag or whatever else. Let's say I only want the 2 uncategorized products. Once you've filtered on those things, you can save that as an option to use again and again. So here I can go ahead and edit the columns, right? Set it up the way I want it. I can apply a filter, like filter by category, save that, uncategorized only. All right. When I do, I'll have something on the menu that I can automatically access with no trouble. Watch this. Refresh the page. And now I can just go to uncategorized only. Really super powerful. I use that quite a bit when I'm doing sales funnels. So I've got basically like all my products, but I don't have to look at 100 different things. I can only look at the things that apply. Also, this little trigger comes on inline editing, which really also might be useful to some folks, because now you'll notice if I want to change something, I don't have to go all the way back into the product. If I want to change the image on this, super great example. This is fast, right? That was way much more streamlined than messing around. Oh, I got to change the price. No problem. Let me set that to $210. Check. That's really powerful. That's fast. It takes way more time to open up each of the products. I'm not sure about this, but let me see if I can bulk edit. Notice this now, superpowered bulk editing on price, right? The difficulty though is when you're bulk editing, it's going to affect two things at once. So if you wanted to set all your products to $100.02, no problem. Easy to do, except I changed both products. All right, great utility. Keep it in mind. Admin columns, Pro. Let's go back to LaunchKit. I'm going to, I said I'm going to do 5, but I'm just going to do some of these. I'm just like really excited to show you. So autocomplete WooCommerce orders. This is a very esoteric one. Normally out of the box with orders from WooCommerce, the only way that they will complete automatically is if they are checked to be both virtual and downloadable. Otherwise, WooCommerce by default assumes that you have to ship them, and it doesn't change the status from processing to complete. It stays as processing, which means that some of the automations don't trigger, the emails don't go out, whatever. If you are selling virtual products, install this free plugin from the software bundle. And then when you do, let's make sure we've turned it on. It will be available inside of the settings of WooCommerce. So let's activate that. And now let's go to WooCommerce settings. And here we have autocomplete orders. And what this allows us to do is to choose how to handle orders, whether they're virtual or not. What I usually do is I say all orders. Why? Because I don't ship anything physically. If I had physical stuff, I would probably say make all virtual orders. That is to say any product that has the checkbox of virtual. Let me show you what that means. If I go over to my products, you have an option for all products to check the box that says virtual. And it's a good idea in any case, if you have a shippable product, to make sure that you're using this option. But if you don't have any virtual products, it's kind of like a moot point, but you could still do what I'm showing you. Make sure that this checkbox here for virtual is checked. If you wanted to not have to use this plugin, just make all your virtual products virtual and downloadable, and then automatically WooCommerce will manage this for you. But if you use the plugin, at least make it virtual. And in doing so, let's close this window. And in doing so, you can just choose virtual orders. If you're like me, though, all orders is fine. That means anything anybody buys, they give me the money immediately, regardless of whether I've shipped it. The order is marked complete. It's not really about the money. It's really about the orders, because what happens is with your orders here in WooCommerce, I don't have any orders in this particular demo, but in your orders in WooCommerce, you've got the various statuses, right? On hold, complete, processing, canceled, refunded. If somebody were to give you money and pay for it, the order could still be in processing mode, in which case your automations, your emails, your follow-ups would not go through, and you might be wondering what's wrong. It's just that you have to click complete, which would normally happen when you ship the product or when your shipping partner ships the product. So that's a good reason for using this to make sure that everything gets through and you get paid and the automations happen concurrently. Moving down, block visibility. I'm going to mention this one I'm going to probably do a whole episode of Friday about this. This is what I use whenever I'm doing conditional display of products or services or things on the website based upon stuff that isn't necessarily about whether the person has the tags yet, but is rather real time. Okay, let me give you an example. Normally, with the way I teach with using marketing automation, you have tags to track somebody clicked this, bought this, done this, and so forth. But tags don't apply until, let's say, a WooCommerce product is purchased and the completed checkout happens. What if I wanted to do something with visibility that had to do with somebody putting something in the cart, which is a huge use case? Like Spence wants to offer them an upsell, but it'd be stupid to offer them the upsell if A, they already bought it, B, it's already in the cart. Like, why would Spence bother me about this thing? I've already said, okay, you had me at hello, Spence. So let's do an example of that. When block visibility is set up, it gives you so many other use cases for when and if certain Gutenberg blocks show up. But we use those with the launch flows, for example, buttons or links or product toggles or order bumps to conditionally display, most often on a checkout page, a particular thing. Here's an example. If I go over to my products, let's get a product ID that I can use for an order bump. So let's say product 1 is, well, here, this one's got a nice line. Product 2 is ID of 14. Let's go to our checkout page. So we'll go, I should have a checkout page here, even though this is in a demo mode. Right. And I think I was using a custom template on this. So let's say I want to put a conditional display at the top for offering a particular product. Okay. One of the things that I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of this here. Just so I don't have two ways of offering it. And then let's use the layout tool. Don't worry about the layout stuff as much, but I'm going to put something at the top. I'm going to say add before row, like I've done so often. And I'll put in something that gives me the control over the layout. Now here, I'm going to put the order bump. So I just type LF bump and I'll put in that product number 14 as the product that we're offering as the bump. And with a little bit of a Billy Mays piece square. So it's a checkbox. And then I'll add before it, I'll put in a little add before a heading text. And I'll say, but wait, there's more. All right. Now, I like to put around the section a decorative display, right? I like to go old school. So I'm going to go border styles. I'm going to do 5-pixel dashed red. And then I like to also put a little padding in there just because it gives it a little feeling of being set off. Now, let's take a look at what I built, and then I'm going to show you how we use the conditional blocks to display this, or block visibility, I should say. So here's my option. Well, wouldn't it be dumb to do that when the person already's got the thing in the checkout, right? It's already here. Why am I offering that? Sometimes I do want to offer that because in this case, look, I have a toggle and the toggle switch indicates where somebody's at. So that actually is a good reason to keep it visible. But what if I wanted to hide that if somebody had it in the box? Well, let's do that. I go to this section and then I'll typically go to the advanced tab on that block and I go to the visibility. Here's an example of using WooCommerce status for conditional display or block visibility display. Scroll down to WooCommerce integration and I say, show the block if, but I can also do the other way around. Hide the block if. And here's the rule. Cart contents, total products, quantity of something in the cart, total orders, time since order, product inventory. I got lots of WooCommerce options, but the one I want is cart content. And then I say contains product any of, and then, or I could do, by the way, I could reverse this rule and say none of this. Okay. But the rule I'm saying is hide this if product 2. is in the cart. Okay. So I made a rule that says if that product 2 is in the cart, hide that box. Let's see how it applies. Save this, refresh. Check it out. Works beautifully, right? If I empty the cart, that will restore. Let's refresh the page. Let's check our logic because it's not restoring. It should, it would, it will, but I just might not have either saved it or something else. So hide the block if the cart contains product 2. Let's save it. Make sure that's actually applying. And by the way, sometimes, not always, this could be a different factor. I'm using this other setup. There might be some other rule that I've got in there, so I might just have to double check. I'm gonna just put something else in there to see because let's check my rules. I love working without a net, but when I work without a net, sometimes we end up with weird outcomes. Let's see. I'm going to change the rule just slightly. And I also want to make sure, by the way, it should be fine. I'm almost 100% sure that's product 2. Yeah. Oh, I see what the problem is. Sorry. The problem is I'm looking at the wrong checkout. I'm looking at the pattern checkout. I'm not looking at the checkout for this particular website. Sorry about that. It's helpful when I look at the actual page. All right. So here is this product 2. Let's empty the cart. And let's do that programmatically. Okay. So it works fine. I was just on the wrong page. Sorry, coffee break. So this is a good example of how block visibility would work. You can use it for an infinite number of other things, and you can even layer rules. So for example, what I've often done with this is I will have one set of rules and then a second set of rules. And the cool part about this tool, make note, is rule set. Go here and you can duplicate a rule set, but you can also add something new, which is over here, which you can do visibility presets. What I love about this is you can take a set of rules that are very complex and you can save them as a preset. And now you can easily apply them to 1, 2, 5, 10, 20 different scenarios without much work, right? Because it's like doing block patterns. You don't have to do every single one manually. You can set them up as a preset. I have them on a client site, but I don't want to go there because they're in the middle of their heavy sales season. So I don't want to open up their site, but I use that with them. And also this makes them transportable. So if you use the presets, you can do import, copy, export, and so forth. So very, very useful utility in my world when I'm doing custom layouts and so forth. And we're doing pretty good for time. These are fun ones I've shown before. Disable comments is just a utility that allows you to essentially turn off comments on the whole site. I very rarely need or want comments on blog posts in today, although that is kind of changing. The reason has been because they're just a spam magnet. Instead of the comments, I will use the club. If I have something I want a discussion of, I use the community aspect, and you guys are all part of this. So go over to, well, there's not one installed here, but wplaunchify.com/club. I've actually made my community public because I'm using it as a publishing platform, but you can go in here and very safely comment and interact, and it doesn't cause me any kind of spam. So I'm just going to go over the top of this one. Disabling comments on the whole site is really pretty useful, but be careful if you're using, for example, WooCommerce. Comments are really the same thing as customers doing reviews. So be sure you don't disable things like WooCommerce product reviews if that's what you're using it for. Duplicate page is a must-have. That essentially just gives you the option on any post type especially pages, to be to be able to duplicate or copy something. This is hugely valuable in terms of time savings. So when I activate this, this means that when I, for example, go to pages, if there's a page or a product I want to duplicate, I just click here, sample page, duplicate this. Ta-da! It takes all the content, makes a copy of it, and then that draft I can edit very quickly. Much, much, much easier than copying the content, pasting the content, and so forth. All right, let's go back to the kit. The minute launch kit. You know what? I wasn't gonna do this many, but these are fast to show. ClickWhale is what I use for two things. I use it at 1WD TV, and I always show the back end of this. I'm not afraid of that. This is where my hub of marketing. I use ClickWhale for two main purposes. Number one, if there are affiliate links, this is a great way to manage them, right? So if, for example, I'm trying to give somebody access to rocket.net hosting or something, I have a link. There's a 1WD.TV/rocket. And this will send them with the necessary referral code. That's obvious. The second reason I use it is for things like the Have I Helped? If I want to give somebody a landing page using Fluent CRM, I have this one, which I think all of you guys should try. I'm going to put it into the comments. It's the Have I Helped? And here's what it looks like in live site. It takes you to this weird, URL, Fluent Forms landing equals 3. But the point is that all I have to do is publish a link that looks good, feels good. It's very short and sweet because 1WD.TV is a horrible domain. I've hated it forever, but man, is it short. It allows me to very simply and elegantly also do this for things like sharing on X or YouTube or Facebook or LinkedIn. I can make short links that are very attractive to get people where I want them to go. And in this case, I tied it together with something that it resolves very elegantly into what I'm doing. And in fact, I think I have this here. Have I helped, right? So all you do is just literally put the destination, put some parameters. You can actually use it to track clicks if you want. There is some reporting in here. I don't really use that. I think there's other things like taxonomy, tools, affiliate stuff. I just use it for the basics. I just use it as a link shortener. And for that, it is brilliant. One of the things I like to emphasize, just because a tool does one thing well doesn't mean you should use the other 99 things it offers. That's one of my pet peeves, in fact, of some plugins, is that instead of being awesome at one thing or two things, they try to be awesome at 50 things and they fail at 48, which drags down the value proposition of the other two really awesome things. Let's keep rolling down through here. Fluent Snippets is pretty much the most important utility I personally use, because snippets are a way for us to safely use and test the kind of vibe coding stuff that I'm going to be sharing with you, or do share with you, of things that, let's say, could be a plugin, could ultimately be part of a bigger plugin or solution. But for right now, you want to safely test them. And I've shown this before, but it allows just mere mortals to add code, whether it's safe code like CSS, or it's more potentially likely to break the site code like PHP. And in doing so, you have these toggles and these safety nets that prevent you from doing stupid shit. And that's a technical term. Let's give you an example here. If I wanted to change something in the entire site, I could change it with CSS in the CSS box, or I could put a CSS function in here. I could also, by the way, see PHP plus HTML, CSS only, or JavaScript only. If I want to do site-wide CSS, I could put it here, and then I could see where it applies. Front end, back end, both front end and back end. And CSS is not going to get anyone in trouble, but this is a good place to experiment with things. I don't know. Let's say, for example, I'll do something weird and wacky. I'll inspect, and I wanted to change the menu color, right? So from color here, we'll just turn this to red. Okay. If I took this rule and pasted it in, it's really pretty safe as CSS. I could call it make menu red. I have lots of other rules here, but I'm just going to do the basics. If I do that, I can activate and deactivate it. That's the toggle. When I refresh this page, let's see if it's stuck. And it did. So again, fast and safe way for you to play around, test a lot of the things that I offer. For example, even in the feed, sometimes I'll give you CSS snippets. PHP, even more powerful, because here's what I would suggest to you. I could use something like ChatGPT. And if you want, this is a great place to experiment. Think like a WordPress expert. Write me a snippet that is in PHP to change this menu to red, similar to the CSS below, but with PHP. And I'll give it this little thing, and it will give me a snippet. You may not be comfortable yet coding. You shouldn't have to code. But when we start to interact with the LLMs, knowing a little bit about this potential is going to open up your world a bit. So what I've got is a snippet, a function, instead of a different language called CSS, which is style only. And I could change this little snippet here to, what's interesting is I think once I turn it into CSS, I don't think I can unturn it into CSS. So let's just make a new one. Let's delete that. Let's make a new one, and we'll do this one in PHP. So functions, I paste. Let's copy it better. Hold on. Copy. Let's paste. Notice I don't need to have the PHP twice at the top. So I get rid of that, and then I give it a name. It says color menu red. And what I'm going to do is create the snippet and activate it the same way. And let's just see when we refresh the page if it works. And this is why CSS is sometimes easier. Because it doesn't always work, because I just vibe coded it. I would probably have to check to see what it's talking about. But, you know, the concept is what's important. The tool is what's important. This particular code is not what's important. Sharon says, yes, Sharon actually brings up a really good point, which is something worth noting. Notice all of the extra rules here. She's saying you don't need to put the whole entire thing in there. That is a great point. Instead, what I would normally do for this, like with this color red, let's just be consistent, okay? If I copied this whole thing, and let's say I go back over here, I'm going to say again, that didn't work. Give me a function that applies this CSS to every page so it affects the top menu. Watch what I do. I'm going to paste in, but what Sharon is saying is we don't need all these extra things. We only need the rule that changes the color. Okay. And let's turn off Sharon's notes so you can see at the bottom there. So if you can see this, I'm only making the rule for the color. Let's see if it gives me something functional here before I switch off to another tool. Depending on which ChatGPT or LLM you're using, which is a whole nother conversation, not for today, you can have varying degrees of success until you get good at vibe coding, or until you're good at like what we're trying to accomplish with using the minimal interaction between the data here and AI. Don't worry too much about any of this kind of getting AI to give you the code. I'll hand you the code on a silver platter. I just want you to understand that the Fluent Snippets is a very powerful and sort of safe tool to use. Let's see if we refresh the page, if that works. And now that works. So what we did is essentially the same thing as if we had done CSS, but we did it through a programmatic function. And notice the CSS is being applied by the PHP, but it's limiting itself only to the color scheme. So that was a good tip. Thank you, Sharon. That was awesome. Okay, let's move on. We got a couple minutes left, but I think we're doing pretty good today. I actually like that I'm able to show you more than I had originally thought. Some of these I don't think are, I'm not going to worry too much about. Some of these other ones, the forms, the events. Login Me Now is an important plugin. So this is the tool that you can use if you have anybody working for you, a temporary person, or even for your own team members. If they've been sort of not logged in yet, or they don't end up having a permanent login, this is a way to get that done. Sharon says, exactly, right. I'm going to do a lot more live videos with showing how I'm using ChatGPT for live client build outs, including this one that's just like blowing my mind right now. We're doing for a gaming company. It's changing the way I think about how I'm using WordPress, and it's going to be part of this entire system. So I'm really, really, really excited. Yes, exactly. The tools are incredible when you apply them to the framework. So thank you for those suggestions, Sharon. All right, let's go to Login Me Now. This is a plugin that's going to save your bacon. I'm sure of it. So besides being able to magic log in from Rocket or having me help you, this is a way for you to create one-click magic logins for everybody. Good morning, Sisu. Great to see you. Thanks for joining us. What this allows me to do is there's actually a couple other tools. And by the way, there's another utility that goes with this that I'll show you that allows you to track behavior of people on the site. But just for Login Me Now, it's a weird name, and you have to search for it by one-click magic login. But what it does primarily is this temporary login. And what I can do is use a calendar that says, how long do I want this login to work for? Let's say I'm going to give you a month, just a month, get it done. Generate the login link. What this creates is a disposable one-time link that if somebody uses that on an incognito window, they will be magically logged into the site as a full administrator. And it will also keep track of these once I refresh the page so that you can turn them off. Like, oh, this guy is done. Or on the other hand, instead of deleting it, I want to extend the time. And you can also turn it from pause or perfect when you need help from somebody outside of me who, you don't want them to run away with whatever their access is. And so I love it for that. There are additional extensions that you can do. I think they're really super cool, but I've ended up not using them. For example, you can have a Chrome extension that has a drop-down menu of all your client sites with Magic Login. That could be super cool. And then there's a social login, which you can enable if you want, that will show up on the WP admin login page. I don't like this. Don't use this. I don't think we should give any more social login power to anybody. You guys own and control the site. Username and password are always stored in the browser anyway. Don't use those. Here's some additional settings for some things you can use for the labeling and whatever. Now, this also has additional things that work with it that if you were to go over here to, I don't know if I include them in Launch Kit. Hold on. I think I might have included one of them. The one that I'm thinking of is for tracking. Let me see if I've got it in here. My apologies. I forgot what the name of it is. It's not the social reviews. It is the Simple History. So Simple History is compatible with Login Me Now. And what's cool about that, in my opinion, is this allows you to know who has been doing what on your site. So not like a tattletale, but kind of a tattletale for yourself. So if you have a couple people working on the site or even for yourself and you're like, oh man, what happened? What did I do? Et cetera, et cetera. Simple History is essentially logging all of the changes made in a certain time frame, a certain period. And that could be really super awesome because this means that you will not only know what you've done, but you can also keep track of what other people have been doing. And if there's something that changed or something unexpected, this has been a wonderful tool for me to figure out, like, that's the reason right there. Okay. So the reason I like this too is it's, there's different settings and who you can apply it to, but this is just a lightweight tool, doesn't require a lot of bandwidth. I don't believe it really drags stuff down. You have some controls over where it goes and how you can use it. So it passes my utility test. Independent analytics. This is Spence's answer, and we have a couple minutes left. This is Spence's answer to bye-bye Google, bye-bye Google Tag Manager, bye-bye everything. Google, bye-bye. I use Google for all the other things in terms of email and in terms of services and Google Workspaces, but like no more trying to please like Google Analytics or using Google Analytics as a tool, which is impossible. This independent analytics is so simple, so lightweight. So for the limited reasons today, which are very limited, for knowing globally, generally who's come to visit a site versus specifically, like we can do because we have tags and emails and tracking people, this always skip Freemius. Sorry, Vova. Clear your cache. This will give you in an instant all of the information you need about who's coming to your site in a general way, clicks, real-time tracking. Nobody's on the site but me. Now, some of these things are pro. So for the moment, I'm just giving you the free version. I might put the pro one in here, but I really don't want you to turn this into a tool that you make too much out of. What it's really just good for is just how many people visited the site in general? Where's the traffic coming from in general? Those key things are just right here, ready to use. It's not heavy. There's virtually no startup effort, no knowledge required. Try doing that with Google Analytics 4.0. Just impossible. Impossible. Yeah. Plausible might be good too, but I like this is a plugin. It's just light. It's simple. You can, show me by city where people have visited. Obviously, this isn't showing anything because nobody's on the website, but it's got all the best of what Google is supposed to be doing with none of the downsides. So I love it for that. I got time for maybe one or two more, so I don't pull you guys away from your summer fun. So many choices, so little time. Manage notification email. Maybe I'll come back. I'm going to pick maybe two from here. I'm going to go with menu images. This one is pretty good. Menu images is the thing that I actually use if I want to add an icon or an image to one of the nav menus and do it in a way that gives me way, way more control even than Kadence can. So this is ironically, I'm not sure why it's not in Kadence, but well, actually I take it back. It is in Kadence if you want to use the new block builder for menus, which I do not want to do. But for the normal old-fashioned menu, watch what this does. So again, skip Freemius. Sorry, Vova. You can set the default image sizes, and then all you need to do, if I recall correctly, I'm doing this on WP Launchify, actually. Let me see. Why is it showing weird there? There. So these two, sorry, I clicked. These two little unusual cuties at the end are being done with what I'm going to show you now. So here, if I go to appearance menus, and maybe there is a thing in Kadence that does this, but again, I didn't see it outside of the block editor. So you can say, let's create a menu, primary. I'll assign it to primary. Now I'm going to put something like a custom link to Spencer Foreman on, right? So I'll do custom link, spencerforeman.com. Now watch this, Spencer Foreman. If I put the text, that's fine. But when I open this up, now I can add an image or an icon. Don't get crazy with this. So, make it appropriate. Let's also do this too, because I have to save this before I do that. Sorry. I went into modal hell. I'm going to save the menu and I'm going to add the link and save it first. Otherwise it's just confused. So let me do it one more time. SpencerForeman.com. Spence. Add the menu. Let me save this. Save. Okay. And just for good measure, refreshing the page. Okay. So you see it's got like even a little helper menu image, right? And Now we got the modal that works, and I can either use an uploaded image, that I've got, or an icon. I can change the size of it, the thumbnail, right? I could put it before or after. So let's put it before and let's set an image. I can use the media library, the media hub. I can go to Pexels. Happy guy. You're obviously not going to use this as an image, but just the point being that you could theoretically put emoticons, icons, any kind of an image you want in there. So let's see what this looks like. It's going to be a little ridiculous, but you can kind of see it there. You can make it a little bigger if we wanted. Save it. And then that's how we achieve something that's otherwise, I don't know why, very difficult to do. It should be, like in my world, my view, it should be part of the normal navigation menu features. I mean, it would seem logical. Let's see what that looks like. And there you go. Okay. So I think probably I accidentally switched it to the right side before I did it. Let's do the last one because we're over 11 o'clock. I don't want to keep you guys. And Anne is reported back. Plausible is not free, whereas independent analytics is. So that's a win for simple analytics. Okay. The last one. I'm going to pick carefully. Well, I kind of almost have to go with File Manager. So WP File Manager provides essentially SFTP or FTP capability in your dashboard, which is going to be really useful for a lot of things you may not understand yet. But one of them is like just managing your uploaded content or organizing stuff, whether using Filebird or not. But what it really does is it allows us to do things like I showed 2 weeks ago, where I was able to edit the config file, if you remember, in order to show the debugging information. Otherwise, I would have had to get access to the dashboard inside of the host like Rocket. We don't need that with the file manager. It provides us what's essentially an SFTP client right in your dashboard. And as long as you're careful, this really works stupendously well. So for example, here's my entire directory of content. I might be managing things with regard to plugins. Like sometimes you guys have had instances where one of the plugins is like, it won't upload the new one because it says that it's already in there. Well, all you do is select the folder, hit delete, remove the actual plugin folder. Problem solved. Now you can reinstall it from scratch. You can bulk clean up a ton of stuff. Okay. Bye-bye plugins. I just deleted, 12 plugins really quickly. Why? I'm not actually uninstalling them. I'm simply removing their files, which means they won't work. But if I ever reinstall them, all the settings will remain the same. You're not in any danger. What I showed you before, and I'm referencing again here, is if I go to the root of the site, I can go to the WP config file and use the editor, which is also built in. So here, WP config, code editor. I could choose the styling if I want to do a different style instead of this white and black. But this is where, like I had shown you before, I can go in and configure the debug, right? So define debug, I can make that true. Easy. I'm in the site. Okay. I'm going to call good session today. This was very useful, I think, for future replay. I want to also answer a question that Anne had brought up. There was a question from Bernie as well. So thank you for those questions. Let me quickly throw those in here. Anne's question had to do with launch flows. Launch flows, if you go to the documentation, about setting up a product with the blank template versus the default template of launch flows, or using the default template of WooCommerce. Okay. So if we were to go to products and coupons, customize the single product layout, this will go into some detail of what I'm just going to describe quickly, where we can choose different templates for different reasons. And I outline them here. Here's the actual documentation. One of the things that I do have to do, and I'm in the process with Anne's help, is I'm going to be coming out with Launch Flows 5.0, which is super streamlined, super elegant and simple. And I'm eliminating all conversation about Elementor and all these other These old docs have a lot of Elementor references, so just ignore them in favor of shortcodes. Here's what it looks like in practice. If you are creating a product in launch flows with WooCommerce, of course, add new product. You have a choice of how to do the layout. If you use the default product layout, you will get whatever the theme controls are for the product, right? So sample product, we give it just an image. Any image will do. Let's do this dude. And then the controls for the product will dictate what is displayed, right? So if we scroll down the page over here on the left, hold on. Come on, little cutie. There it is. By the way, this is worth noting. This draggable control is really cool, but if you see this draggable control, just note you've got to pull it up. This is actually, I think, being put in by one of our extra plugins, but if it's not, it might be part of the default. Now, this is actually quite useful, but just drag it up if you see that little handle. So what I was saying is if you go to launch flows, you can choose from the product template being original template, default launch flows, or default blank. Ignore these two. These are going to be removed as a legacy. The original template will show what normally WooCommerce would look like. So if I give this product a price of say $100 and let's say I published it, what I would see is, kind of what Kadence outputs, which is the, thumbnail, the add to cart button, so on and so forth, right? Pretty simple. I can modify that using a couple other features, but what we do in launch flows is if I switch to launch flows default template, it's going to look exactly the same. But what's happening under the hood is now launch flows has magically identified each of these elements, and I can move them and hide them in any way I want. And if I do it as the default template, it shows the default pieces first, and then it moves the new pieces, I believe, below. Watch what I mean. If I take the /LF product, I can say any of these things in purple: product, add to cart, breadcrumb, description, first payment, medic. Let's take, for example, the add to cart, and I want to move it above or below. If I do that by itself, it's taking that one piece and it's going to move it, I believe, below. Let's see, hold on. Let's make sure I've saved that. And notice now the add to cart button is at the bottom. Well, what I usually use this for is very rarely for a default template, but this is an example of like, if I want to hide something, this is really useful because let's say I wanted to use a button instead of the default add to cart, but otherwise I wanted to kind of leave things alone. I could just put that piece on the page with the default template, and then I go to the block under advanced and I say LF hide. What that's essentially saying is show all the default template except hide entirely the add to cart. So now when I refresh the page, it's gone, but the rest of the layout's alone. What I really most of the time do is not that. Instead, what I do is I use the launch flows blank template. What this does is it identifies the pieces, hides them all by default. Why? Because this way I can make a custom sales page and everything in here is going to be in existence. I've done this many times. And all I want to do now is either add back in the piece or change the links to be like a direct to checkout. So here, for example, I could make this a direct to checkout for this product by saying buy now, and then simply using this product's direct to checkout link on that button. So if I scroll here, launch flows checkout link, I add it to that button. That's the way I use the blank template mostly. But I can also add in that piece that I was showing you before that's hidden right now, the regular add to cart. So what if I did add after and I said LF product add to cart? That's going to show that below the button. Let's take a look. Everything else is there. It's just hidden. And let's make sure Spence does two things. Let's make it a full width page. Let's disable all the header and stuff. Let's try it one more time. The problem with what I did is it's way down the page. So I'm going to show it to you, but now that it's full width, let me show you. And let me also zoom back to normal width here. Okay. So when I scroll down the page, here's my buy now button that was created, and here's my normal add to cart. And it functions perfectly normal. If I click it, it'll add 2 products to the cart. So this is how I use those product templates. And most of the time when I'm doing sales pages in products, that's how I do it. Launch flows blank template, add in the cadence blocks, done and done. Bernie had a question, which is an unusual question, about one last product. And he was wondering why he was getting funky thumbnails. That should be the name of my new band, Funky Thumbnails. Why was he getting funky thumbnails in his, when people would get an SMS from him to go to the website, it was showing some oddball thing. Well, what it was showing was the home page's first image, because really need to install the Open Graph plugin, which is also free in LaunchKit. If I go back over here, somehow I've gone to a different website. If I go back over here to LaunchKit, and the plugin is Open Graph, LMNOP graph. And what this does is really just turn it on and it works. It allows you essentially to have one image be your fallback to properly represent the site. I am pretty sure there's not even any settings in this. Hold on. Yeah, you don't do anything. You just turn this on. In fact, this is why I like it. If we go over here to view details, let's go to the plugin site. You just turn this on and it works. I know it seems like voodoo, but what it essentially does is, all right, you don't. There's nothing you can figure. No, it'll use whatever standard WordPress data it can use to populate. So what it'll do is it'll take that default image that you've set up is your logo or what have you inside of Kadence, and it will properly apply it so that if you did a search, like a Google search, the proper thing will appear. And it really gets good reviews. It's very simple. I've used it on all my sites because it seems to just do the necessary thing. If you want more control, you can do more control, but this is one of those ones that I believe that's the answer. Otherwise, what happens is the Open Graph or something on Facebook or Twitter is looking elsewhere. Let's take a look at my Facebook. I think I'm hopefully logged in here. Yeah. So if I were to, for example, put a link in WP Launchify, launchify.com. Okay. This is like my default Kadence image. I can override it here, but that's what's coming out. Let's see what happens if I do KPI. He might have changed it already. Blackbelt.com. I do that. I'm going to do a new. Either Bernie doesn't have it set up, which is probably why he asked, or you notice it isn't working. Let's see what happens when I switch to SpencerForeman.com. It's picking up. So it's a Sable thing. Let's see, because I know Anna's here. Let's see if we Nutritify. I'm sure she's using it too. Very good. So super awesome. Very easy. I'm really happy with today. It was a little longer for the extra bonus material. I hope you guys have an amazing weekend. Incredibly cool stuff that I'm excited to publish, both as updates as well as for new techniques on my vibe coding experiments and client success stories with using all this stuff. Also want to emphasize the number of you that have been really very gracious about coming to me and sharing both we knew each other back in the Ning days, or, oh my God, I can't believe that I've been working with somebody else for so long and now I've used your help. And I realized that you're selling a great relationship. One of my clients this week in particular had a very well-known person in the WordPress community helping them who, not sure why, was not responding for 8 to 10 days to normal requests. He came to me and was a little skeptical, rightfully so at first, and then found out for himself what it's like to work with me, which is I tend to answer you within 24 hours, no matter what, unless in surgery, which could happen often. Otherwise, to me, that's the best thing that I've got to offer is Spence has made a fiduciary relationship with all of you in some level or another, depending on where you are, your club, member, email, maybe hands-on. I want to say thanks again. Also, Sharon, great questions today. Thank you, Anne. Thank you, everybody who's joined us today. I hope you enjoyed this replay, and I'll see you guys next week for more. See you then.